It's the Resistance Report for February 8th, 2017. Good evening. In tying together events of the day and showing patterns and context, which is really what I and we are trying to do with this Resistance Report, we've got to start with a speech that Donald Trump gave this morning in which he blasted the federal judiciary once again. But he did it in a slightly different way, and it's important to look at his words and see them in context. He said the courts, and he was talking about basically what the federal courts are doing about his Muslim travel ban, which he insists is not a Muslim travel ban, even though that's what he called for. The courts, he said, seem to be so political, and it would be great, so great for our justice system if they'd be able to read a statement and do what's right. They're political and they're not doing what's right. Now, what Donald Trump is doing clearly is setting up the possibility that he's going to lose in the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, and they are going to uphold the stay of the district court. In other words, Donald Trump's ban on travel by people from 7 predominantly Muslim countries is probably going to be upheld. And therefore, the stay is going to be upheld. And that means even the constitutionality of the ban is probably going to be struck down at some point. And what Donald Trump wants to do is undermine public confidence in the judiciary, as he did a couple of days ago. And he said, essentially, if there's going to be any kind of a terrorist act, then we know who to blame. We'll blame the courts. Now, the courts in our system, as you know, are an independent branch. They are designed and put into place by the framers of the Constitution in the 18th century, who had Donald Trump in mind, not literally, but figuratively, because they really designed checks and balances and separation of powers so that no tyrant could gain control. But what they perhaps didn't foresee is a tyrant who would attempt to gain control over government and over the judicial branch and over the congressional branch. He already has control because it's run by Republicans who seem to be cowed by Trump, not really resisting him at all. What they didn't foresee in 1787 was the possibility of a tyrant who essentially undermined public confidence in the courts, as he has attempted to undermine public confidence in a free and independent judiciary, which is also guaranteed in the Constitution. The other thing that happened today along the same lines is that authoritarian Republicans in Congress have played right along with Donald Trump. Today they confirmed Jeff Sessions for Attorney General of the United States. Yesterday, they confirmed the utterly unqualified, incompetent Betsy DeVos for Secretary of Education. Now, Trump's cabinet picks are a kind of a Star Wars credenza, right? Barroom of utterly unqualified, incompetent people designed to really who are out to gut the cabinet departments that they will have to swear to uphold. Laws that they will have to swear they will execute faithfully, but they are, all of them, opposed to those laws. It's important to understand the dimensions of the authoritarianism, even in the Republican Party and Senate Republicans, when you realize that last night, Mitch McConnell imposed a gag order, essentially a silencing order, on Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, an absurd use of a Senate Rule 19, which prohibits senators on its face from attributing to another senator any conduct or motive unworthy or unbecoming of a senator. Now, senators have done this. Republican senators have done this to one another. Remember Ted Cruz and his attacks on fellow Republican senators? I mean, we have seen this certainly over the last 18 months. But what Mitch McConnell did is he went after Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat, a woman, silencing her, telling her she couldn't even read a letter, a 1986 letter from Coretta Scott King, the widow of Martin Luther King Jr., that criticized Jeff Sessions for using the power of his office as U.S. Attorney in Alabama to silence the free exercise of black citizens. That's what she said while serving as United States Attorney. So what Mitch McConnell essentially did by silencing Elizabeth Warren was metaphorically silencing women and silencing Democrats and silencing blacks and basically conjuring up all the silencing that has been done in the United States. And Jeff Sessions, who himself has a record of silencing blacks and others and women, he is going to be an attorney general, and obviously he will not be enforcing the laws that give people voice, that protect women's rights to choose, women's rights over their bodies, or voting rights, or civil rights. Also, just to connect all of the dots today, because again, the purpose of this is to connect dots in any given day to show the larger pattern. Donald Trump went on the attack against even another American corporation. He lashed out at Nordstrom for deciding that it was no longer going to carry Ivanka Trump's line. Now, this is particularly interesting. He said that Nordstrom was being irresponsible, it was taking itself, it was being political. Now, Nordstrom came out with a statement. It said that it was canceling the line because demand was declining. Maybe because there was a boycott. Maybe because we are having an effect. Hopefully that's why. But if demand drops for a product in the free market, we can't expect a corporation to keep a particular product line going. I mean, the free market dictates that corporations just drop products that are not selling. So what Donald Trump is doing in his attack on Nordstrom is saying essentially, you, because I am president, you must continue, even if you have no economic justification for doing that, continue to carry my daughter's brand. It's very similar to what happened 2 days ago when Melania Trump filed a libel lawsuit that described her, quote, multi-year term, unquote, an obvious reference to her status as First Lady, as a lucrative business opportunity that she was somehow being deprived of because of some libel that she's alleging. So put all of these strands together today. You've got single-party rule in Washington, and we can see what single-party rule does. You've got a gag order on a Senate Democrat. You've got, already gag orders on government scientists, nonstop attacks on the press, attacks on the judiciary by Donald Trump, brazen conflicts of financial interest. What does all this mean? Well, my friends, it is actually good news. Why is it good news? It's good news because instead of putting out the fires of resistance, Trump and his authoritarian Republican enablers are actually fueling the flames. After days like this, a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks of Trump and his administration, and basically trampling on the Constitution, they are fanning the flames of resistance. More and more of you, more and more people across this country, even if they are not Democrats, are saying, this is outrageous. I'm going to get involved. In other words, what Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell and others and the other enablers are doing is they are creating a movement, a very powerful movement. They think that they are just simply making it easier for themselves to do whatever they want. No. They're actually generating the largest opposition that they could ever possibly envision. And that opposition, if it is handled correctly, if we do our jobs, is going to mean that the Senate doesn't stay in the hands of Republicans in 2018 and beyond, and maybe even the House doesn't stay in the hands of Republicans, and the courts are going to get even more actively involved, and state attorneys general are going to be even more actively involved in constraining this authoritarianism. And we are going to boycott more and more Trump products. And we will not be silenced. The system we are in has a natural resilience. That is, when power is abused, people rise up. The abuses of power we've seen over the last 2 weeks are creating the largest movement I have ever seen, and that movement is going to not only be victorious over Republicans, that movement is actually going to result in a reform of our system. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, many of us had joined Bernie Sanders' campaign because it was anti-establishment, and it really was fundamentally a political revolution. And what we have now is almost the opposite. We've got Donald Trump, anti-establishment, but authoritarian anti-establishment. The irony is that Trump and his authoritarianism is fueling a larger version of Bernie Sanders' political revolution. And over the longer term, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, I can't tell you how long it will take, we are going to win. The irony is that we needed Trump to get Bernie Sanders' political revolution. I'll take your questions. So our first question, we don't have too many questions, just a few questions tonight. First one is from Melinda Thomas Vague. I haven't seen these questions before, by the way. Melinda, I hope it's not a vague question. Sorry. How can it be okay that Trump attacks Nordstrom's? How is it that not against the ethics of the highest office? Of course it's unethical. I mean, this is part and parcel of Donald Trump having business and his family having business interests that are intertwined with his government position. So he is attacking a private corporation for not carrying his daughter's line. It's the same thing as Sean Spicer, his press secretary, recently urging people to stay at the Trump International Hotel, from which Donald Trump himself personally gets 67% of the profits. It is unethical. Megan Emery. The Republicans are redrawing voting districts to break up Democratic areas into smaller, ineffective blocks. How can we stop this from happening? Megan, at the state level, what we need to do, all of us need to do, is to do what California and a couple of other states have done, and that is take the power of districting, redistricting, drawing the districts out from under the state legislatures. That is necessary because the degree of gerrymandering we have right now is entrenching Republicans in power, even when they don't have the majority. Michael Dickens, I welcome your thoughts about the president's behavior demeaning a federal judge and being critical of our judiciary system. Has he gone too far yet? Of course he's gone too far. He's jeopardizing the independence of the judiciary. He's undermining the confidence of the judiciary. Alexander Hamilton, in The Federalist, wrote about the third branch of government, the judiciary, as being the least dangerous branch because, according to Alexander Hamilton, it had neither the sword nor the purse. That is, it had no military power and it has no power over appropriations, over money. All it has, all the judiciary has, is public confidence. And if the president is undermining the public confidence in the judiciary, he is undermining the constitutional grant of authority that the judiciary, judges, courts have. That ought to be, in and of itself, deemed unconstitutional. It's very dangerous. Okay, this is the last question, and it is Vivi Bloom. How depressed should we be that all Trump cabinet appointees have gotten confirmed? I feel awful. Well, I understand how you feel. First of all, they haven't all been confirmed, but put this in historical context, Vivi. Over all of American history, only 9 presidential cabinet picks have been denied confirmation. In all of presidential history, only 9. And when the same party controls the presidency that controls the Senate, all cabinet picks have been affirmed since 1925. Do you understand me? The odds, realistically, even though these particular cabinet picks by Donald Trump are utterly absurd, incompetent, unqualified, nonetheless, the odds of the Republicans in the Senate actually not confirming them are very, very low. I think that Andrew Posner has a very good chance of not getting confirmed because, I mean, we'll talk about this. He is the worst of the worst, but there are many others who are coming very close. I was very impressed, frankly, that 2 Republican senators decided against Betsy DeVos. And the vice president had to come in, Pence had to come into the Senate chamber and break a tie vote. The first time it's ever happened. So look at the other side. That is, look at how extraordinary it is that the votes are as large against these people. And understand that that is the case because of you, what you're doing, what I'm doing, what all of us are doing in terms of keeping the pressure on. So I want to congratulate you once again for being strong and courageous and active and involved and tenacious. You are needed now more than ever. We are succeeding. The road is hard, the road is long, but we will win. See you tomorrow.